and I'm feeling good.
A guy named Daryl wrote and, wanted information about Jesus Camp and everything else, and also mentioned what seems to be my personal mantra with regard to the evil of the Bible, which is the story of the 32,000 virgins.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And I rattle it off all the time because I think it's important that people recognize this, that no matter what kind of Christian you are, you can't shy away from the truth of this. And
rattle that off real quick so we can know which kind of 32,000 virgins.
That's the thing. The story's from Numbers chapter 31. And I put together a little thing last night that I'll just go through quickly. In verse 1, it says, "And Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, Avenge the sons of Israel from the Midianites. Afterwards you shall be gathered to your people." Right off the bat, you've got the Bible stating clearly that this wasn't just Moses ordering this. This was God telling Moses.
Yeah.
So you can't let Jehovah off the hook. This isn't Moses' doing. This is really God's doing. God's order, according to the Bible. I read through this several times last night, even though I know the story well. And I could imagine in my head a fundamentalist preacher preaching a sermon on this particular passage. What ends up happening is that Moses sent out his men, and they completely killed all of the Midianite males. And they brought back captives. All of the women, all the little kids, and all of their money and cattle and sheep and everything else, all of their goods, brought it back to Moses. And Moses was pissed. And he says basically, "Why have you left all the women alive?" And the men didn't have an answer, and Moses is telling them, "Look, we were on strict orders from God to do this. The men had turned their backs on God and deserved to die, but the women are the ones who led them away from God, and they deserve to die. And all of the little boys, because the fathers are carried out upon the sons, they also deserve to die.
Right.
So take all of them out there, kill all of the women and all the little boys, but keep any young girl who hasn't had sex with a man." So they go out after they've killed off the entire city, town, or whatever, and then they kill all the women and the kids, except for the young virgin girls. And they come back, and it's time to divvy up the spoils. They get divided up among the warriors and the priests and the tribe and everything. And it turns out that there are 32,000 virgin girls. Of those, 32 get turned over to the church, to the temple.
Okay.
Now, the fundamentalist preacher goes straight along with that and says, it's unfortunate that these men turned their back on the one true God, but they asked for it, and God killed them. The men deserved it, the women deserved it, the little boys deserve it. But isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful, friend, that God, in His infinite love and mercy, spared all those young girls so that they could grow up
be raped
in the one true religion, knowing Jehovah and knowing His love? What a crock of shit!
To be raped after they just watched all the people they love get killed.
There's no
by
way
the people
out of
who are
this.
raping them.
After they kill off all of those, Moses goes and has another talk with God, and God basically tells him exactly how to divide up the girls and all the goods. It's as I mentioned last night to this guy, the Christian rationalization for this is one of the most vile, despicable things I've ever heard. And they ignore this, much in the same way that Sodom and Gomorrah got what they had coming to them.
You probably don't hear that many sermons about this particular passage.
No.
I mean, you could come up with a way to rationalize it, but it's not a real touchy-feely, nice sermon to come up with when there are so many other Bible verses to choose from.
And how many people would they have had to kill?
Well, I did the math.
If there are 32,000 young girls,
it turns out it was really easy, because in Austin I have the population figures.
By about 6.
I have the population figures for Austin.
Yeah.
And currently there are girls ages 0 through 17 I did the math, and in order to come up with 32,000 of them based on Austin population, you'd need 300,000 total population.
Could be more than that. I'd bet that in those days you'd only have to go up to like 13.
Yeah, maybe 14, 15,
by
something
14
like that.
you're probably having.
So we don't really know. But in any case, you could say a good estimate, they'd have to have a total population of about 300,000 or so. Now,
That's a lot.
In the year 2000, there were only 58 cities in the U.S. that had more than 300,000 total population. Tampa was at the bottom of that list at 58.
Wow.
With 303,000.
So they basically have to wipe out Tampa.
Yeah, at circa 2000, Tampa is what they would have had to wipe out in order to end up with 32,000 virgins.
Wow. Cool.
I mean,
That doesn't sound very plausible to me, actually.
There's lots of numbers in the Bible that have to be completely wrong. All of the dimensions of Solomon's temple and how much gold and metal and everything went into that.
I mean, there's been an enormous population explosion in the last century. I mean, I find it hard to believe that there were cities the size of
the Roman Empire had 5 million people in it around 14 AD.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, we looked at that too.
I looked it up because that was one of the things that I was wondering
But the
about.
Roman Empire was huge,
Oh,
not
yeah,
all in
it's
one
enormous.
city. I mean,
Yeah,
it
was the whole known world.
spread out all over the place. I'm talking one city with 300,000 people.
Right. I mean, here we've got
Probably may
this
not have
roving
existed.
band of murderous barbarians. And this story about the Midianites is specific. It says, hey, we went out and killed and we slaughtered and we made it away with 32,000 young nubile slaves.
Yeah, go us.
Woo.
Pwned.
Well,
But all throughout the rest of the Bible, there's a whole bunch of stories where, you've got David utterly destroyed this tribe and utterly destroyed that tribe and utterly destroyed...
Right.
They don't even give the specifics on it.
right.
The number of
True.
people that were just killed, all at God's instruction. But my thing about this whole story is that no matter... Christians can rationalize it away. And my thing is that this would be incredibly appalling even if it were about a single family. I went next door, and because they were deserving, I murdered the father, the mother, and the little boy, but I kept their 12-year-old daughter to myself. One family, one instance, makes this one of the most immoral, appalling things that could possibly happen. And yet now we've done it on a mass scale that it is a moral requirement.
Yeah, well, for perspective, 300,000 is like 50 9/11s.
Yeah. It's 10 times the number of U.S. soldiers who have died in Iraq so far.
But it's only half the number, according to the recent report that came out, of Iraqis who have been killed.
Right.
Exactly where did all of this take place? Did they have some big city? How do you corral all of the women and children where you've got 32,000 of them are young virgins and you're going to kill off the rest?
The alternative to this horrible slaughter of the city of Tampa population is that, well, the Bible's lying to us about the number.
I hope.
Let's hope.
The important thing is that it doesn't matter.
I don't
think
lying
this story
to us.
ever happened. I think it's far-fetched. I think their numbers are all wrong.
But that would mean the Bible is bogus.
But it doesn't
But
matter.
you're right, it doesn't matter.
Because it is portrayed as something that was just and good to do.
Right. It's something that God supposedly did and put his seal of approval on. And if that had ever really happened, it would be horribly evil.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's why I agree with Mark Twain when he says that the God of the Bible was a malign thug. And I think Mark Twain was particularly nice. That is probably the most pleasant description you could give.
And I'm feeling